Hey guys, I'm super excited that you joined me today, and Happy New Year! This is the beginning of a great big adventure for all of us as we change our relationship with stuff. Now, I'm super excited about 2023 because 2023 is the year that the new year starts on the first day of the week. So it's Sunday, it's January 1st. There's no excuse that this can't be the best year of our lives starting right now. Okay. So I'm super excited about this as we journey through the coming year. Now, for those of you that are just joining me, I'm super excited. I want to introduce myself really quickly so that you know what you're in for as we move forward through the next year. I'm Angela Brown, and I have been a house cleaner for the last 30 years. So, being inside lots of people's homes, I'm talking thousands of people's homes, I've seen a lot of issues with hoarding. And as we deal with lots of issues with hoarding, one of the things that we've discovered is that there are a lot of myths that have been passed around, they've been shared, there are stigmas about hoarding, and then there are people that are looking for hoarding help. And it's not okay for them to ask for help because of all the myths and the stigma, and they want help but they don't know how to ask for it. They have family members that are alienating themselves from them. They have family members that want to be close to them, and some of them have alienated themselves from family members. But what we have to look at is that hoarding affects a lot of people. Okay, it is a myth that it affects only just like a few people that have like really messy houses. Okay, that's not what's happening at all. And during the pandemic, one of the things that we discovered, and this is really interesting, and one of the reasons my business has pivoted slightly, is because during the pandemic, we had a whole bunch of people that were mandated to stay home. And as they stayed home, they started saying, well, hey, now that I'm home, maybe I should pull out that scary room and kind of go through the things that have been there for the last 10, 15 years. And as they started pulling stuff out, what they discovered was there were things they forgot they had. Some of them they started using again, which is cool. Some of them they discovered, oh, I don't know why I still have this, or they were emotionally attached to it. And then it became hard to get rid of. So they didn't do anything with it. And then it just sat there now in their living room, and they've been tripping over it for the last 2 years. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened that has made people stop to say, wait a second, what is this hoarding thing? Am I alone? Is there a way out of it? What's going on here? And there are a lot of questions. Okay. So I want to start out by saying that first and foremost, I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I am a YouTuber and a house cleaner. Okay. That's who I am. That is who I've been for the last 30 years. But now I train house cleaners all over the world. And as a result of that, we are in thousands of people's homes. Okay. It is me and a whole bunch of different cleaning companies that are now seeing patterns. And so while we are not licensed clinical therapists that can help you with this, what we can do is we can help expand the conversation so that it's a safe place to have a conversation about hoarding. Hoarding, clutter, overwhelming amounts of stuff in our house. We can call it whatever we want, but the reality is we need to address it. Okay. So that is the whole purpose of what we're doing here today. I'm excited that you've joined me. I love the fact that you guys found us on our new YouTube channel. We moved this over from our cleaning channel so that we could just focus specifically on hoarding and decluttering. So I love the fact that you guys are here, and thank you so much. If you have not subscribed, this is a really great time to do that. We come up with 6 new 15-second tips a day on decluttering and hoarding removal that maybe you didn't know. And so if you hit the subscribe button and you subscribe, those will be then sent to your YouTube feed. So that then when you log on, they'll go like, hey, here's a quick 15-second decluttering tip. And so we're putting those together for you now. And I've got several people on my team that are helping me with those so that we can just give you kind of a little boost and a daily reminder and a hello, how you doing? And just give you some pointers along the way. Okay, so today I would like to jump into our myths. I got a whole bunch of myths here, and I don't know where they came from. We've been collecting them for years. And what's important to me is that we have some clarity on these. Okay. The clarity is it true? Is it false? Is it fact? Is it fiction? Okay. So write in the comments, if you will, is this a myth or is this a fact? Hoarding is simply a lack of organization. What do you think? All right, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think it has nothing to do with organization. I've coined something in my business while we're referring to house cleaners that are going inside homes, and they're going into what we call organized hoarders homes. Okay. I think it is a myth. And here's the reason why. I've been inside homes where people are highly organized, and yet the things that they have in their homes are still interfering with their lives. It's interfering sometimes with their safety, but they've got lots and lots and lots and lots of it, and they're hoarding it, and it's really overwhelming. Okay, so they don't have to be unorganized to be a hoarder. You can be an organized hoarder, and so this is in fact a myth. And I want us to stop and ask for a second. Hey, wait a second, is that me? And the reason I want us to ask this question is maybe it's not you, but as you ask these questions, just as we talk about the myths today, you might discover that it's a family member, either a child or a parent or a loved one, a relative of some sort, who might be highly organized, but they might have issues with organized hoarding. And so then that allows to say, hey, listen, I just learned something about organized hoarding the other day, and I was wondering about myself and the things that I have and the collections that I have and the amount of things that I have and the volume. Is this possible for me? What do you think? Talk to the family member that you have a question with and spark a conversation. Because what we're trying to do moving forward into the next year is we're trying to make it safe to have these conversations. Okay. So we're going to say this is a myth. This is in fact a myth. There are lots and lots of hoarders who, and when we think of hoarding, we think of like, oh, there's junk everywhere, right? There are a lot of organized hoarders that have a lot of stuff. Okay, so this one is in fact a myth. All right, the next one. Hoarding is a choice. What do you think? Write in the comments. Do you think hoarding is a choice, or do you think it's something that like just finds you and then there's no way out? Hey, Glenda. Hey, Star Seed Shan. So good to see you guys. Melanie, I'm so excited that you guys have joined me today, and thank you so much, and Happy New Year. All right, is hoarding a choice? Some would say, yes, it's a choice. And some would say, no, it's not a choice. It's just something that you're stuck with. So I'm going to say it is possible that it is a choice, and it is possible that some people have no control over it whatsoever. Okay. There are varying levels of hoarding, and there are varying levels of types of hoarding, and there are varying levels of people who choose to have a lot of stuff. There are people that have obsessive compulsive shopping behaviors. And so while they may have a choice to go to the store and shop or not, the results of that may be the hoarding. Maybe they did not choose to be a hoarder, but maybe they chose to shop. Maybe they didn't choose to shop, and maybe it is like an addiction, and it's something that they have to deal with. Okay. And so they're, like I said, they're all levels of hoarding. And so what I want us to think of is there a way that we can stop and have a conversation and stop and say, is it possible that we could change our choices and change our structure over the way we manage things? Now, in this particular picture, what we're looking at, and I will make this big so we can see it here, what we're looking at is a woman who has saved one box of lifestyle from every one of her children. And so this represents 35 years of one child's life. In every one of those boxes is 1 year of the child's life, and she has cool stuff in there from that one child's life. The challenge with this situation is, as organized as she is, and I'm going to call her an organized hoarder, she has 7 children. And so for the 7 children she has, for each of the years old that these kids exist, she's got a wall just like this for every one of her kids. And the boxes, sadly enough, the boxes are available so that when the kids come over, they can get inside the boxes and they can go through stuff and they can have access to it and whatever. So in the different walls of her home, she's got a great big wall dedicated to John, another wall dedicated to Mary. I'm making up the names so that we don't, expose anyone. But what is the reality? That this is an organized hoarding situation where she's got a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Now is the time to give it to the kids and to say, do you want this? And if you don't want this, will you go through this box? Get rid of one box every time you come over until we can downsize all of the stuff, right? What's happening is, as she's adding to these walls, she's now adding grandkids' walls. And so the walls that were empty that you could, hang a coat on or something like that, now it's being managed by boxes for the grandkids. Okay. So at some point we need to address this. I'm not judging her, but I'm saying at some point there needs to be a conversation, right? Okay, cool. All right. So this one is a myth. Hoarding is a choice. No, it's a myth. That is a myth. All right. Next, next myth. Hoarders are lazy and don't care about their homes. This is a really tough one. This is a tough one because a lot of the hoarders that we've met and a lot of the hoarders that we've worked with, it seems like they don't care at times, and sometimes it seems like they're just overwhelmed. But one of the things that we've noticed, and I really want to pay attention to this, one of the things that we've noticed over the years is in this picture, it's easy to assume that the hoarder is the one in the bed, right? In this picture, the hoarder is actually the one that is in blue that is helping the person in the bed. It's the nurse. Now, what happens here is we have a nurse who has 2 small children, and she's a single mom, and she works a lot so she can pay the bills. And when she goes to work, she's caring for other people. And all day, every day, all of her energy, all of her time is spent helping other people and saving people's lives and making people feel safe and comfortable. And then when she goes home, she has 2 small children to deal with. So where on the scale of priorities is cleaning her home? Where does that even fall on the scale? And the answer is really nowhere at all. Okay. She's overwhelmed. That's true. She's doing her best to help other people all day, every day. And when she gets home, she's absolutely exhausted. And so is she lazy and not care about her home? No, she cares very much about her home, but she's spending all of her free time now caring for children and caring for other people and caring and caring and caring and caring. She would give you the shirt off her back. I mean, this is a person who really cares, but her home is a disaster. Okay. So I want us to be aware that some of the people that we see and work with every single day are in a situation like this, and they're everyday normal people, and they are not lazy and they don't care about their homes. It is true that some hoarders don't. Okay. I don't want to say that all hoarders are lazy or no hoarders are lazy. There are some who are. But for the most part, these are not lazy people who don't care about their homes. These are people who care about other things and their priorities are different. Okay. That's it. Their priorities are different. And so as a house cleaner, when we've been hired to go inside someone's home, even on an extreme clean, where you come in and you bring, trucks that are going to help haul away bunches of stuff, what we have to realize is this is not a person that has just let their life go because they don't care. It's just that they find themselves in an unlucky situation because they've spent all of their focus and all of their priorities helping other people. So this is a myth. All right, moving on. Isn't this interesting? I just am fascinated by this. Hoarders are poor and can't afford nice stuff. What do you think? Is this a myth? Is this fact? Is this fiction? What do you think? I'm curious for your thoughts. Starseed Shan says, and this is interesting, I have lots of hardworking family members who are also hoarders to some degree. This is true. This is true. One of the biggest commonalities that I have seen personally with hoarders is they tend to be professionals. So it's going to be your school teachers. It's going to be your attorneys. It is. And here's the reason why. An attorney who's on trial is trying to keep someone from going to prison. Okay. They are spending all of their free time going through every brief, every fact, every piece of information that they've been given, trying to save someone from going to prison because this person's life is on the line. They're willing to sacrifice their own personal life to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do for their clients, right? They are so dedicated. And again, these are caregivers that are helping other people. And I have seen, and we've cleaned so many houses, I can't tell you, of attorneys. When you get a call from an attorney, you're like, oh no. What happens is they've got lots of boxes everywhere. And on top of those boxes, they might take a shower and they're halfway through drying their hair when they get a phone call and they go in and then they just put the towel on top of stuff. And then their wife brings them food to eat or their husband brings them food to eat and they eat while they're at the desk and then the dirty dishes go right there. And before you know it, the whole entire office, their home office, looks like just, it exploded. It's not that they don't care. It's that they care so much about something else. Here we go. Are they poor and can they not afford nice stuff? No, a lot of them are very wealthy. I've met a lot of hoarders who are very wealthy. One of the things that I am most alarmed of is the amount of money some of these hoarders have. If you've ever cleaned a celebrity's house, and we've cleaned several. I'm in North Carolina where we have professional NASCAR teams. We've got ball teams. We have bankers. We've got lots and lots of celebrities here in the North Carolina area. as we've cleaned their homes, we've seen 500 pairs of shoes. And they're very, very expensive pair of shoes. That one of their pairs of shoes is more than they paid us for an entire year of house cleaning. And they've got hundreds of pairs of shoes. So these are people that can afford really nice stuff. And a lot of times they fall in the trap of hoarding because they can't afford to buy lots of stuff and more of it and whatever. And they'll buy one in every color. And it's not limited to just people who are broke. Okay. So this is, without a doubt, this is a myth. All right, moving on. Is this fascinating? I just love this kind of stuff, loving having these conversations. This is hoarders are dirty and unkempt. Is this a myth or is this a fact? Well, this is also a myth. And the reason that I say this is because there are a lot of hoarders that once they leave their homes are different than the rest of their lives. And many of them carry on really nice jobs. Many of them, as they walk out their front door, their lawns are immaculate and perfectly manicured because that's what the neighbors see. When you open the door, woo, it looks totally different. Okay. So if it's true, and there was a slide at the beginning of our time together today that says, and this is an interesting observation as well, because if this is true, it says researchers believe that compulsive hoarding affects 1 in every 50 people. If you live in a neighborhood that has 400 homes, it is possible that at least 4 of those homes are hoarder homes, right? And so what are the possibilities? And then the reality beyond just, is it 1 in 50? Is it 1 in 20? What are the stats? What are the real stats here? And how do we know? The real stats are, and it's an interesting observation, but there are a lot of people that nobody knows they're hoarders. There are a lot of people that have alienated themselves from family. They will meet at restaurants. They come over to your house. You're not allowed to go to their house because they're ashamed of what's inside. So there are a lot of people that are not reported. They have not sought out help. Nobody knows that they're a hoarder, and yet they struggle with these issues in private. So are they dirty and unkempt? No, they're struggling with their homes. When they leave their homes, they're perfectly clean and have hygiene. You'll see in this particular picture, everything here is actually organized. We don't have any food lying about. There's no garbage lying about. Everything in this picture is highly organized. It's in clear plastic bins so that it's easily viewed. We have stuff that is in airtight containers. We have boxes that are sealed. It's not like stuff just strewn all about, right? This is a busy business professional. But behind closed doors has a whole lot of stuff. And what we don't know is this: where did it come from? There are a lot of people that have stumbled upon hoarding, no fault of their own, but it is possible, looking at this, that this young man's relative, maybe his grandma, died, and he ended up with all the stuff from her home. It is possible that she lived like this and she just gifted him the home. So he moved in. Great. This is a really inexpensive place to stay. And he doesn't know what to do with the stuff. And because he doesn't know what to do with the stuff, he hasn't done anything with it, right? So it doesn't mean that he's dirty and unkempt. It means he was a busy professional, living a very happy life. Suddenly he got a free house. Woo! How cool is that? Well, the coolness of having the free house is awesome. But what that means is now he has to figure out how to cope with this, how to deal with this, how to get help for this, and how to find a solution. Now, let's pretend for a second that his mother is still alive. Maybe she wants some of this stuff, right? So he can't just go willy-nilly and throw it all away. The mom is like, hey, don't throw it away, because maybe there's some stuff in there that's really valuable to me, or maybe some of it is mine. Okay, well, come over whenever you get a chance. Let's pretend for a second that she lives 300 miles away. So she can't come until the New Year break when she has time off work. So he's been living like this for 6 months. All right, let's stop for a second and look at this picture. What just happened? This guy in this picture, we're going to say, became an inherited hoarder. This is not a clinical term. We just kind of made this up, but they're an inherited hoarder. They inherited this stuff. They don't know what to do with it. Boom, here it is, right? So let's pretend for a second that now here he is, 6 months. What is his new norm? His new norm now is that, oh, hey, I live around a bunch of stuff. I have learned to live with a bunch of stuff. And as he's learned to live with a bunch of stuff, check this out. He now has become an unwilling participant in the hoarding game. He now has become a hoarder, and that is his new norm. For him to like tidy everything up and have nothing around and be like totally immaculate, that's unlike him now. He's learned how to weave his way through a bunch of stuff, and he's been told by his mother it's probably valuable. Is it? We don't know. We don't know, right? But every day when he leaves the house, he's showered, he's shaved, he looks fantastic. He goes and he does his professional job. When he comes home at night, he's fine. He's learned to live with the new norm. All right, so this is a myth. All right, very cool. This is really a challenging series of topics. Okay, so hoarders are sad and gloomy. Is this a myth or is this a fact? I've met a lot of hoarders, and it's true they are sad and gloomy. Okay, lots of hoarders are sad and gloomy. That said, I will say I think this is a myth. And here's the reason why. There are a lot of hoarders. Guess what? This doesn't bother them at all. They're living full lives. They socialize with friends. In this particular scenario, and this is really interesting, we're seeing a whole new trend here we've never seen before. This is an influencer. And as the internet becomes more popular and there are more influencers on YouTube and TikTok and what have you, there are a lot of companies that will sponsor these videos. Okay. This girl is super happy and she's got a great hat and she's got what looks like a DJI gimbal there that she's got her smartphone on. She's super happy and she's got just a home full of freebies that have been sent to her. Is she sad and gloomy? No, she's super happy and she's rich. She's making a whole lot of money from doing this kind of stuff. But what is the reality? The reality is she has no idea how to manage the stuff and she has no idea what to do with it. But she was raised in an environment where it's free, right? We call it free-itis. It's free. So because it's free, she doesn't want to get rid of it. Somebody sent her something nice. And so, yay, I'll make a video about it and I'll keep it. And look at me, I got a whole bunch of cool stuff, right? She's super happy. So this is a myth. Hoarders are not always sad and gloomy. They can be, but they don't have to be. That's not a sign of being a hoarder. If you're sad and gloomy, well, you're sad and gloomy, but anybody, even if they're not hoarders, can be sad and gloomy, right? So this is a myth. And I want us to pay very close attention to the fact that some of the people we know that we see, and we see them in professional settings or we see them outside their homes. They might be our neighbors. They might be our relatives. They might be hoarders that we don't know about. And they're like happy and they're living full productive lives. And so we never ask and we never get to know them on a level where they really need our help. And if they've been faking it and they've been like, oh, hey, I'm so happy. Everything's perfect. Check it out. Look at me. And they're always doing selfies and all this kind of stuff. Have you ever stopped to ask, how are you doing? Do this for me over the holidays and over the new year. When you run into your family members and your friends and they're like, hi, how are you? If they say I'm fine, ask them again, how are you really doing? I just want to check in on you. Sometimes we say we're fine. Are you really doing fine? Tell me more. And you will be surprised at how many people say, well, actually, this is a new year and I'm doing a lot of reflecting right now. This is a tough time of the year for a lot of people who have hoarding tendencies. Because this is a new year. This is a time of reflection. This is a time where people want to start over. And a lot of people don't have the help that they need, or they don't have the resources to go through and like the college kid that we looked at that had the whole house of grandma's stuff. What if he doesn't have the money to hire somebody to come in and help him do a professional organizing job, right? What if he doesn't have the money? There are a lot of people in this situation. And so they're left at their own, where do I go? What do I do? And so it is possible that there are people that just don't have the skills. Then when you ask them how they're doing, they say what is expected. Oh, I'm fine. Everything's good. But what they're really saying is, hey, man, I'm drowning in stuff. I really need some help. Are you free on a Saturday? Could you come help me go through some stuff? Could you help me? Right? There are a lot of people that for the very first time, now we're getting to a point where we live in an era. It's okay to ask for help. Nobody has to be perfect. It's okay. And so we have to welcome people's conversations about, is that okay? Is it okay to ask for help? All right, this is a myth. Hoarders are not necessarily sad and gloomy. They can be, but not necessarily. All right, the next one. Here's a myth. Hoarding only affects older adults. Is that a myth or is that a fact? Well, it is true that hoarding affects a lot of older adults. And here's the reason why. As you get older in your life, there is a tendency to inherit a home from a parent that may have passed on. And so you have all of your stuff that you've accumulated over your life. And then you have the new stuff you've inherited from a parent or a grandparent. And if you are married, it is possible that when you got married, you merged households. And we live in an era where there are lots of marriages. So people don't just have one marriage anymore and together they acquired things. Oftentimes it's, oh, I have all my stuff. Halfway through my life, I married someone else. Now we have all of their stuff. And they accumulated a lot of stuff through their life. So now you got two sets of everything. Mom or dad dies. Now you've got all their stuff, right? You have 1, 2, 3 sets of stuff. Oh, wait, one of them had a storage unit. One of them had a storage unit in the back of their house or a shed. And now you start getting all these different things that you're trying to sort through, right? So does it only affect older adults? No. But it is possible that the majority or a lot of older adults suffer from hoarding. Okay. Now, one of the things I really want to pay attention to is if this is somebody who comes from a large family. Now, my mother was one of 16 children, and I am one of 19 children. So right there, just with the sheer volume of everyone, there's a sheer volume of stuff, right? And so with large families, as people do get older, there is a tendency to save stuff. And so does it only affect older adults? It does not. It does not. It affects children as well. And the reason that I bring this up is because there are kids who have grown up in an environment. And I see that Starseed Shan here says our environments affect us often on, I can't read this here. Our environments affect us on more levels than we appreciate. This is true. This is true. This comes from an environmental perspective, okay? And the reason I bring this up, and this is so important, is if you're raising a child and a child looks around and all they see is a whole bunch of stuff, what do they say? Well, I get a whole bunch of stuff too. And they start doing what they see. And so, hey, listen, I don't need just, 5 cars. I need the whole collections. I need all the cars. I need all the stuff. And so it becomes something that then through their lives, they start saving all the stuff and all the toys. And if mom and dad have one of everything, they want one of everything, right? That's what they know. So no, this is not limited to only older adults. This is, in fact, a myth. So let's pay attention to that as we go along. And again, as we're talking to our friends and relatives, let's find out, right? Okay, here's a good one. This myth is a hoarder of one thing is a hoarder of all things. Is this a myth? Is this fact? Is this fiction? This is one of the most interesting ones that we have run into. And we've run into a lot of hoarders that will hoard 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 types of things and nothing else. And it's not that they're organized hoarders. They kind of are, but they could be highly disorganized with the 3 or 4 things that they hoard. And it can be things like they hoard books. And so there will be books strewn all over their house. And that might be it. It might only be books. They might only have hundreds and thousands of books. And when I say this, I'm speaking from my own heart. I'm a book collector. I say a book collector. I'm a book hoarder. I love books. There was a period of my life I had 10,000 books. And when I moved to the house that I live in right now, I had a special room made that was climate controlled. That was this monster room that would house all of my books. Okay. And it wasn't a library. I'm talking like in boxes on shelves. That wasn't even the library. The library was in the other room, right? But I had a special climate controlled room built for my books. And this is before Kindle. And then I say, hey, what am I doing? What am I doing collecting all these books, right? So there are people that collect certain things and then nothing else. But hoarding tendencies cannot lie. So if you have hoarding tendencies and there's a tendency to hoard books, they might also hoard other things. This might be somebody that also hoards sewing stuff, for example. When I grew up, I was not going to be a house cleaner. I was going to be a designer. I know. A sewing machine, clothing, fabric, little things that you use on fabric. I'm an incredible seamstress, and I'm not bragging, but that's what I was going to do when I grow up. Okay. And so for years, every time I drive by a Joann Fabrics, I'm like, oh, I want to see what they've got. And I wasn't going to buy anything. I was just going to, go inside and take a look around. And then $200 later, I'd come out with these big bags because I had this new, renewed enthusiasm of stuff I was going to make. And I would buy all kinds of stuff, little stitch witchery and little cool pin cushions and little clamps and clips that you could put fabric on and use for a whole bunch of, little design things. And yay. Okay, so what happened was I collected books and I collected fabric. And there was one period of time I had boxes of fabric and no time to sew. So yeah, I had these compulsions to like do some fantastic craft stuff. And I'm one of these people, I can sit down, I don't even need a pattern. I can sit down and go, hey, it needs 2 arms, it needs, a fitted whatever, and and I could make something that was perfectly fitted just from, my head. How cool is that? I could whip something together, lickety split. But the reality is that's not where my time was focused. My priorities were somewhere else. And because my priorities were somewhere else, I never got around to my hobbies. I did not make time for my hobbies. So is a person who hoards a collector of one thing, are they also a hoarder of all things? That is a myth, okay? That is a myth. That is not true. But there is a tendency to collect 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 types of items, right? Maybe you collect plants. Maybe you say, well, I'm a gardener. I'm self-sufficient. I'm going to collect plants. And then you have hundreds and hundreds of plants that have overtaken your house and your living area. And it's become either a trip hazard for you, or you're not able to go to family reunions because you have to stay and water the plants and harvest the food that you've planted, or you have too much of the food and now you have to give it away before it goes bad because you don't believe in waste. There's a whole bunch of things that come along with that, right? So this is a myth, okay? Hoarders of one thing are not hoarders of all things, but there are tendencies. So we just have to be aware of that. Sarah, you just made my day. Sarah says she loves books too. Yay! Okay, we are twins. I love this. We have somebody else here who loves books. All right, and I'm excited because Glenda says knitters and their stash. Yeah, if you're a knitter, I knit too. Yarn, 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 and more yarn. And what I've done, and this is interesting, but as I've given myself permission to move on in life, I've said, okay, I'm probably never going to sit down and knit again. Okay, just my eyesight, the time that I'm spending. I'm usually, if I'm even watching TV, it's not me sitting there knitting, which I would love. I'm sitting in front of my laptop and I'm doing stuff for my business. Okay, so my days of knitting are over. I'm probably never going to do it again. I have given myself permission to get rid of all of my yarn, all of my knitting needles, all of my crocheting needles, all of my tatting spools, and all of my thread. All of the things that I once really enjoyed that were handy items. I used to do a lot of embroidery and a lot of crafts. I've given all of that up. And now I'm at the very final stages of giving up my sewing machine, my sergers, and all of my fabric. I've been going through everything one by one. And I had to ask myself a really hard question. Here's the question that I asked. If I were left alone and no one was interrupting me and I had a week by myself and I could do whatever I wanted, and it wasn't that there were any pressing deadlines or anything on business, would I sit down in front of my sewing machine and would I sew? And the answer, oddly enough, is no, I would not. What I would do with my time is I would sit down and I would write my next book. And I said, whoa, wait a second, my priorities just shifted. It did. I would write my next book. That is where I would focus my energy. Is there a time that in my future ever that I would sit down and I would start sewing clothes again? And then I looked at how much my time is worth per hour. And I said, no, there's nothing I could make that I can't buy less expensively somewhere else. For me to spend the time and the energy to sew something, I could buy it quicker, faster, cheaper, and have it delivered the next day. I will never probably do that again. Okay. So once I walked myself through the reasons why, and I gave myself permission, I went ahead and I started getting rid of all of my fabric. And it was painful for me because I picked out the fabric because I was in love with it. Right. But what I had to do is have this conversation. If I'm in love with this fabric, was it because it brought me a moment of hope? And the answer is yes, it did. I saw this and I said, oh, wouldn't I look awesome in that? Right. I'm going to make me something very cool wearing that. Guess what I wear all day, every day? Is this? Yeah. For like 30 years, blue shirt, pants, tennis shoes for like 30 years. That's what house cleaners wear. This is my house cleaning outfit. This is what I wear. And so there's really no need for the sewing I was going to do. So I gave myself permission to move on. Am I heartbroken? No, not really, because I'm using my creativity to do other things that I really enjoy. Hey, Melanie, good to see you here. Melanie says, books, yarn, I make a lot of baby blankets and jewelry. Okay, so the thing that I love about what you're saying is that you're actually doing the craft. You're doing it, right? I was not doing it. They were just sitting in my house, and that's the big difference. So, I love the fact that you're doing it, though. I'm so jealous, and I'm super excited for you. So, way to go. A myth. Hoarders are highly sentimental. What do you think? Myth, fact, fiction. What do you think? I'm going to say that this one is 100% a myth. There are a lot of hoarders that have stuff they don't even care about. There's no sentimental value in it whatsoever. It could come, it could go. They don't care. They just have a whole bunch of stuff. And where did it come from? And it could have come from a compulsive shopping place. There are a lot of people that just buy stuff, and they buy stuff because they saw a cool ad on TikTok and they're like, oh, that's so cool. I got to get that. I got to get me one of those. And they do. And then when it gets there, it may or may not be what they wanted, or, if they use it, that's great. If they don't use it, well, it's here if I need it. There are a lot of people that are not sentimental at all. There are a lot of people like the college kid we saw earlier who in our story inherited his grandmother's house full of stuff. He doesn't care about any of it. Maybe his mother does. So the question is there someone else in your house that you're hanging on to stuff for? And I've had to have some really unfortunate conversations about who is this stuff for. There was a lady whose home we cleaned, and I won't share any names, but she ended up buying what we call an overflow house. So she lives in house here, and she bought the house next door as an overflow house for all of her stuff. And her stuff, she was an organized hoarder. Oh, her home was beautiful, and she had lots of it. And she went to these inordinate extremes to have like all those custom closets put in, where you open up the closets and everything has lights shining on it, and everything was just like perfectly organized. She had this amazing basement in the second home that was nothing but an arcade game for her kids. It had air hockey tables and pool tables, and it had weight equipment, and it had those little what do you call them, where the little stick, and it's got little people on it, and you pull the stick, you twist it, and they kick the ball. She had all kinds of this stuff. And you walk in and you're like, oh, this place is amazing. And her teenage boys, guess where they spent their time? Sitting out on the back patio or hanging out on the trampoline with their friends. They didn't, who is this stuff for? And she would say, oh, it's for my kids. But when we got right down to it, it was for her. She wanted the illusion of I'm providing all this stuff for my family. And she was hoarding lots of stuff. It was all organized, and there was a place for all of it, and it all had to be cleaned. I say that because she kept us employed a lot. And so I'm very grateful for her business, but there was a lot of stuff we were cleaning that really no one was using. No one was ever going to use it. And it was just so that when people came over, they'd go, wow, look at this. Okay, so you get brownie points, but how often do people come over and get the brownie points, right? There's a disconnect here. What are you doing here? And she just kept buying thing after thing after thing after thing. She bought a Blockbuster store when it went out of business, and she moved the entire Blockbuster store into the basement of the first home. And so what's interesting about that is it had all of the racks and all of the shelves, so that it would say like drama and entertainment. It was beautiful. Her home was beautiful. And lots of conversations about why are you doing this? And at what point are you going to stop buying like whole businesses? Her garage that went over the attic extra room area that went over her garage looked like a Michael's store. And it had racks of beautiful paper and walls of beads and all kinds of stuff. It was, like I said, it was absolutely amazing and beautiful. And Melanie, thank you so much. It's foosball. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. And that was not going to come to me today on my own. It just was not. So thank you for that. Beautiful house, but lots and lots and lots of stuff. And was she sentimental? No, none of this was for her. None of it. It was all for her kids. And she thought, well, my kids will love me more if I have all this stuff. And when we helped her get rid of some of it, not all of it, but as we helped her get rid of some of it, she was like, sure, you can get rid of this whole room if you like. There was no attachment whatsoever. She was just buying things to, thought this would be fun, thought this would make the family love her more. Didn't care. This is a myth. This is 100% a myth. It's a very interesting myth, though. Very interesting. All right, hoarders are poor and can't afford to throw stuff away. Is this a myth or is this true? Hoarders are poor and can't afford to throw stuff away. All right, this is a really interesting one, and this one hits really close to home with me. I grew up in an environment where we did not waste anything. And it's not that we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money for a long period of time, but everything was reusable. Everything was recyclable. And we lived out in the country where we didn't have what we have in a lot of modern cities, which is recycling pickup where they come to your house. So you get something like what we see in the picture here, which are takeout boxes, or maybe you buy something at the grocery store and it comes in a nice little box and it's got a reusable, I mean, you can wash it a couple of times and get more use out of it. These are clear plastic bins, which we promote in organization, right? Because with a clear box, you can see what's inside. You can see how much is in there. If it's starting to go bad, you can see, right? This meets all the requirements. And so if you have a whole cupboard like this, then yay, right? You win. But the reality is this is a myth. It's not that hoarders are poor and can't afford to throw stuff away. It's that a lot of times hoarders will say, I see something here I can reuse. Instead of putting this in a landfill, I can get a few more uses out of this. I can put something right now, it's a leftover from tonight's dinner. I can put it in here and tomorrow it's already packed. I can put this in someone's lunchbox and they can take this to work with them or take this to school with them. And so this is useful stuff. And so it's not that they can't afford it to throw it away. A lot of times it's that they won't throw it away. So what we have to start asking ourselves, the question is, can we buy differently? Instead of buying small packs of stuff that come in expensive packaging that we know is going to go in a landfill, if we have plenty of these, can we just buy either something bigger and then use what we need from one container instead of buying lots of smaller containers? I know growing up, my mother saved butter containers, and no fault, no shame to my mother. I'm not calling her out, but she was very resourceful. And so one of the things that happened was every time she got a butter container, she's like, whoa, I hit the jackpot. I have another container now for crayons. And then she would organize all the crayons. She would label them with masking tape and it would go right on a shelf. And because the butter containers stack up, she'd have like a whole shelf of things, stickers, blocks, crayons, beads. I mean, she was super organized. And so to her, a butter container was like a free container with a lid. How cool is that, right? And then the time comes that you have to say, well, how many crayon containers do we have? Because we can't see through them. And because we can't see through them, we don't know really what's in any of those containers. So we kept creating new containers and new containers and new containers. And sometimes we would use the crayon containers again and again. But we did at some point have to say, when is enough enough, right? So it's not that they're too poor to throw stuff away. It's usually, okay, because some people are too poor and can't afford to throw it away. That's true. But usually it's because people are resourceful and they say, I can put nails in this. I can put bobby pins in this. I can put Q-tips in this. I can put, you name it, right? They're resourceful and they reuse things instead of wasting them. And that's where that comes from. So this is a myth, but it's also something to be aware of, right? All right, next one, and this is kind of fun. Hoarding is a harmless eccentricity. True or false? This actually, and unfortunately, is a myth. It's not harmless at all. While we think that it only affects us, one of the things that we've discovered, and this is something we have to have a real conversation about. One of the things that has happened over the years is people get comfortable with their new norm. And as they get comfortable with their norm, things change. Along with the things that change is they could have a baby. Now they have a baby and they're trying to carry the baby and burp the baby and carry the baby and hold the baby in the night. Now they're tripping over stuff that to them when they were single was no problem at all. It could be that they fell and shattered their knee or something, and now they're in a cast when before they could just wander fine through the house, but now they're on crutches. They're starting to bang into stuff and they don't have the ability. They're now maybe on one of those little scooters that they got a kneel on. It doesn't go through the house now because there's stuff that didn't bother them when they were able-bodied. Along with that comes, as we age, the age progression, the natural age progression will give us some health challenges. And so if you're going from perfectly able-bodied to now, I don't know, being on a walker or one of those little wheelie carts that have the wheels on the bottoms of it, that's not going to go through your house as easily as it did when you were able-bodied. The problem is this: if you put off making space in your home, when the time comes that you're not able to do it, you're really probably not able to be moving boxes around either. And so there's a really magic window. And I don't know what the magic window is, but it's kind of like in the 40, 50 age range, when the kids have gone and you go, wow, I've got all this stuff that I saved for my kids. And so, and a lot of times, like the lady that had the wall with all the boxes of stuff for each one of the years of her children, the challenge is, as you start to go through that stuff, you say, hey, wait a second, if I don't go through this right now, as I advance in age in my life, I'm going to be stuck with all this stuff. So you have all this stuff from your kids, all their homework assignments, all of their toys, all of their clothes, all of the cool stuff that they had, all of those weird, fun, cool, eccentric things that they had as teenagers. You got boxes of this stuff, and you think that one day they're going to want it back. Oftentimes they don't. My husband came home the other day. He'd been visiting his mom, and he says, you know, my mother has this christening dress from when I was christened. I said, oh, that's cool. He said, here's what's not cool. He said, there are only two people in the world that this means anything to, and it's me and my mom. And he said, and I don't give a rip. I don't care about the dress at all. I don't want it back. I don't have a use for it. I'm not going to be ever wearing it again. I don't want it. And she's been saving it for as long as he's been alive because it means something to her. Right. And he said, what happens when the day comes when I inherit this? What am I going to do with it? Because I don't want it. And I said, could you tell her right now that you don't want it? Because maybe she doesn't want it either. Maybe she's hanging on to it because she thinks you want it and this will one day mean something to you. If it doesn't mean anything to you, then please let it go. Right. So as we have disabilities, as we have less mobility, hoarding stuff and hanging on to stuff and having a house full of clutter becomes chaotic and it becomes dangerous. Okay, so this is a myth. This is not harmless at all. This can become a fire hazard. This can become a damage issue if you have like a flood and you have cardboard boxes sitting all over your house. Everything that's inside is going to get soaked. It's going to get ruined. We had a sad situation where there was a woman in our program that the roof got torn off of her house during a great big storm when a tree fell, and it damaged all of the important things to her that had not been properly cared for, like paintings and pictures and valuable items. And she lost them all in this horrific home incident. And then she's like, wow, that was the quickest, fastest way to get rid of stuff. And it removed the emotion from it because they were all destroyed. There was no choice of hanging on to them because they were already destroyed. She couldn't save them. She couldn't salvage them. They had to be junked. And then she was like, wow, I wish I would have done something different to either preserve them and to hang on to them and to only keep the ones that were important to me. And then to let go of the other ones that were now had to be tossed. I hate that. So Mindy says, hello. Glad I'm here to catch up on some of this stuff live. Hello, Mindy. I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to our show today and Happy New Year. This is so much fun. And I do appreciate all you guys joining me, Glenda and Melanie. This is important that we have these conversations. Melanie says, glass candle containers in my bathroom for Q-tips, dental picks, cotton, etc. They look pretty, all uniform. And now I buy my candles and I drop the supplies in the surplus containers. I love that you're doing this. If there's a chance that you can reuse them, and you will, I think that's awesome. One of the things that we've also done for lots of the homeowners that we are working with, because candles seem to be one of those things. I don't know why, but you clean out the candle and then you've got this really cool little glass container. A lot of people don't reuse them. And so now we're moving people over to those candles with the little batteries in them where you don't actually have any fire and you don't have any wax and you don't have any empty containers when it's over. You have an old container that you used in the past and you have a little drop-in votive, and that votive has a little battery on it. And from a distance, you can see the little flicker and it looks cool and it looks like there's a flame, and there's no flame and there's no, yeah. So we're trying to find different ways to accomplish something similar, if not the same, and then have less waste or less storage when it's over. So that's kind of what we're doing. All right. So hoarding is a harmless eccentricity. That is not the case. It can be harmless. I mean, it can be harmful. All right. Next myth. Help for hoarding can only be found through a mental health professional. True or false? This is important, and this is a really important one to kind of have a conversation about, because everywhere we go, we read the stigma, we hear the stigma, we watch TV and there are hoarder shows and they're like, oh, this is a mental illness and this person needs professional help and all this stuff. Is that true? And I wanna draw this in as a myth, because I've been in people's homes for 30 years. Okay. I've met a lot of hoarders. And here's what I'm going to share with you. I want to stop for a second and say it's a lot like eating. If I'm hungry, is there only one place I can go for food? You say, no, you can go to your refrigerator. Yes, thank you very much. How about my pantry? Yes, there's also food in the pantry. How about that freezer out in the garage? Oh, yes, there's food out there too. How about if I call DoorDash? Well, yes, they can bring you food as well. How about if I go down to the Publix grocery store, where they have a whole layer up on top of the store where they have picnic tables and you can buy stuff at the deli and go upstairs and sit there and have your lunch? Oh, yeah, you can eat there too. Or how about going through a drive-through? Oh, yes, they have food. And how about like the Cheesecake Factory? That's a really nice place I can sit down and have a really delicious lunch. Oh, yeah, I can go there and also get some food, right? There are a lot of places you can go if you have hoarding tendencies, or if you know someone who is a hoarder. Here's the reason why. There may be people who need professional help, who need medical help. Okay. Hoarding sometimes does lend itself to you got to get professional help. Okay. I'm not knocking that at all. But there may be people who need a first conversation. There may be somebody that has hoarding tendencies and they need to hear it from someone else. It might be a support group, where there are people that say, wait a second, I'm going through the same issues. So what did you do? Like, what did you do next? How did you resolve that? Like, how did you get rid of stuff when you're living in a house with other people in the family and they don't want to get rid of anything? Like, what did you do? How did you like bring them in on it? Right? Maybe the first conversations they need to have are not with a medical professional. Maybe it's with a friend or somebody that's going through something similar. And I want to say there are a lot of resources available today and a lot of places you can go where you can direct a loved one to if they are having hoarding tendencies, or they're suffering from hoarding, or they're struggling with it, or they're trying to deal with just massive amounts of clutter. There are resources, there are books, there are podcasts, there are YouTube videos, there are live streams like this one right now. I am not a hoarding professional, okay? And I am not a licensed therapist. But what I am is a house cleaner that has been inside hundreds and thousands of homes over a 30-year window. We've got some really strong stats that we've been training house cleaners across the globe. Okay, here's the reason why. With the statistics that we have and with the research that we've done, we've been able to have a lot of conversations. And it's not like saying, hey, we're here to save you. That's not what it's about at all. It's like to say, hey, we're here at your house to clean your house. We want to check in on you and see how you're doing. Are you okay? And do you want to have a conversation with someone? Do you want us to open up that conversation with someone? There are a lot of opportunities we've had over the years where we've been in on the family interventions, where they get the family involved and they say, hey, we need to go in and talk to somebody. Will you come along? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because we're here to help. I don't want someone living in a dangerous home. I don't want someone tripping over stuff that could be moved. If there are family members that are young and able-bodied and they're able to move some stuff, I want them to get the help that they need. And if there are people that are ashamed and they're like, oh, my family is not talking to me because I have too much stuff, that's sad. That's not like, well, that's their fault. No, that's sad. Let's open the door. Let's have a conversation. And let's figure out who can come in and when can we start helping this person move some stuff so that they have a clear path from here to the bathroom, so that if they need to go in there, and they will, that they're not tripping on stuff, right? We don't want them to fall and break a leg and cause more damage to their body, if you will, if they can get some help from a family member who wants to help. And one of the things that we found, and this is a myth that is not even on our list today, the families don't care and that they're being judgmental. That is not the case. 9 times out of 10, we find that the family does love their family member and they do want to help. And they feel really stupid and inadequate because they're not professionals and they have not been trained and they do not know what to say. And when they say something like, hey, I want to help you, then the person that's all ashamed becomes defensive and they become antagonistic. And it's not that they're mean and antagonistic. I've worked with some amazing people over the years that will bite my head off and they just say nasty, hateful things. And I know this person is not nasty and they're not hateful. Okay. What is happening right now is the person has lost some of their independence. They feel bad about the situation that they're in. They're ashamed that they have to ask for help and they kind of need help, which is why I'm here, right? They're willing to pay me to come in and to help their situation. And now that I'm here, they're having to face it at a different level. This is one of the hardest conversations we ever have. And I have to sit there and say to myself, I'm being snapped at. This person is ripping my head off. They're being very mean and very unkind. And that is not what they mean at all. What they're saying is, I need help so badly. And I'm so ashamed. And I'm so afraid to ask for help that the only way that I know how to deal with this is to create this great big facade around me, kind of put up this great big wall like I am so tough, right? That's not it at all. Somebody can just yell at me and scream at me and get out of my house. They get all bent out of shape. What they really need is a great big hug. What they need is a great big hug. And just to take a breath, calm down. That's why we're here, right? We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you. And so tell us what do you want to happen next? And sometimes they don't know. Oftentimes they don't know, right? They don't know, or they would have already done some stuff. And sometimes the mental health professional is the person they need to talk to, but sometimes they don't even know that that's an option. Some people don't know that there are resources available to them that can help in their situation. There are a lot of cleaning companies and extreme cleaning companies that, as part of their business plan, they have dedicated hours per month where they will go in and they will help people clear out their homes. They will help people move stuff around. And they're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured, they're trustworthy people. They've got 5 stars on the Google and these places. These are people who can actually help, and that's part of their outreach program. There are a lot of companies that will help. There's a program like 211.org. And if you're unfamiliar with it, it's by the United Way. They don't come in and clean hoarding houses, but what they do is they have a lot of resources that are available that you may not be aware of. It may be a resource for you. It may be a resource for a member of the family that's trying to help. There are a lot of resources that are available. So is hoarding help only available through one resource? No, not at all. This is a huge piece of fiction. Okay, this is a myth. There are a lot of places that can help. And so I want to think about that. Patty, thank you so much. Patty says, I appreciate you. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate you too, because here's the cool part. Here's the cool part that I didn't share with you guys. For every person that joins us on this chat, it opens ideas and it starts conversations. And so whether you are the hoarder or you're just a clutter bug, or whether you are dealing with a family member who has hoarding tendencies, or maybe they just have collections of stuff, this opens the door to a conversation. And this doesn't cost any money. Our time together is absolutely free to you, okay? This is just another resource. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because during the pandemic especially, lots and lots and lots of people started looking around going, oh my goodness, the storage unit industry is a $31 billion industry every year, okay? The average home spends over $88 a month on their storage rentals, on their storage units. That's a lot of money if you times that by 12 months in a year. And then you look at a recessionary times. That's a lot of money that people could be spending on valuable things other than storing stuff they're never going to use again or ever going to look at, right? All right, so to our next question. Hoarding, is it the same as collecting? True or false? This is an interesting one. The answer is this is in fact a myth. The difference is lots of people have collections and they will go out to eBay and they buy a specific type of thing. In this picture, we're looking at the same type of doll. Whoever this is collects this type of doll. And so they've gone online and they've tried to find every one in the collection. And how cool is that, right? Awesome. And maybe these are all packaged properly and maybe these will be valuable one day. Maybe they're already valuable. I know for a period of time along my journey, I've seen things that have gone through trends, whether they're Pez dispensers or little Beanie Babies or Cabbage Patch dolls or whatever. There are these things, oh, they're so valuable, I got to get one of everyone. And then people keep them in original boxes. They have special rooms in their house built for them. They store them, they display them. I've seen all kinds of fancy, what would be like China hutches that have lights shining on them. You've got all these boxed dolls and things like that because they're valuable, right? People are going to sell these and get their money back. And oftentimes the people will pass away before they ever cash in on their collections. So they spent their whole entire life having fun collecting these really amazing ornamental things and figurines that as a house cleaner, when we see stuff like this, our heart sinks. We're like, oh, really? And it's not in a glass cage. Oh, really? That means every one of these has to be dusted or washed or rinsed or whatever. And so people are like, hey, look at my collections. And they're so excited. And a little piece of us dies on the inside as a house cleaner. We're like, and so we have to sell a special package that says, hey, you know what? Let's take one day. We won't make it part of the maintenance cleaning and we won't make it part of a deep cleaning, but on a special day, we'll come in and we will hand wash or hand brush, because you got to use a makeup brush, depending on the type of figurine that it is. Some can be washed in like hot dish water that will wash all the dust off. Some of them cannot. Some of them are durable enough that you can pop them inside the dishwasher and just run them through a cycle. Right? So you have to decide what kind of cleaning a collection needs. But people that have collections are not necessarily hoarders. They just may have a very valuable collection of something. And yeah, it does have to be maintained in a specific manner, and it does have to be cleaned a certain way. So there's that. I just saw the clock. Our time is up. All right, let me go really fast here. We've got a couple more that are myths that I want to dispel. Hoarding can be cured with a single intervention. That is a myth. That is a myth. It cannot be. For somebody that suffers with hoarding tendencies, for somebody who's grown up in an environment where you save all of the butter containers because they're valuable, because we're resourceful, because we can reuse those things, this cannot be cured in one setting. Hey guys, let's get rid of this stuff. Okay, good. You're good. You're good to go. Even the hoarding shows that we see on TV, people will come in and they do this massive declutter and they gut everything out of the house and they start the person over. But if the person has not desired to change and they have not taken steps to change and they have not exhausted all of the resources available to change, what they're going to do is go right back to what they know, right? It's environmental. It's what we grew up with. Melanie asked a question before the show began about, is this genetic? And there are studies that have been done. They're inconclusive and they are limited studies on, is it inherited? But what we do know is this, and this is not specifically about hoarding, but what we do know is they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. What this means is when someone is dealing with hoarding tendencies, it is often because there's something in their past that has triggered that. It's either I was brought up this way and we save all the butter containers, so that's why I do it, right? And they may not even know why they do it. And so they only do what they know because that's all they know. And no harm, no foul, right? They're only doing what they were taught. And so is it a genetic thing? No, it's not a genetic thing. It's an environmental thing. And there are people that are very tidy because they always grew up tidy. That's just what they know. They never actually thought about it. And then later on, they might have inherited like the mother's house, and then they got married and they have the two houses that have grown together. And then one of the spouses died, one of their divorced spouses died, and they inherit that house. There's a family I know right now that we're working with. They've got 5 houses between their divorced parents that have passed, their own house, and one of their children's houses. The child is now overseas, and so they're keeping up that house. They've got 5 houses between one couple, and they're in their 60s, 65, 67-ish age range. They do not have the energy, the interest, the enthusiasm, or the resources to go through all 5 homes. It is overwhelming to them. So my suggestion is please, please, please do not let it get to a point where you're so overwhelmed you can't get help. But is it a one-time thing? Absolutely not. This is something that goes on and on and on, and it could be a lifetime thing. This could be something we need family help for a long time, right? Patty asked a question. She said, I wish there was someone who could sell things for me and keep most of the profit. It would be a good little business for someone ambitious enough to go through people's stuff. I love that you asked that. Do some research on Google. And the reason I say that is because there was a store. I don't think it's there anymore, but there was a store in the town I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think it was called eBay Redo. And what they did is you would take all of your stuff to them and they would do an eBay sell for you. And they put all this stuff together and they made a serious profit off of all the stuff that you did. It was like a consignment store, but they specifically worked for you. They put all the ads together, they took all the pictures, and whatever you brought in, they would sell for you. And then they would pack it up and ship it, and you didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So there are probably some enterprising people that are out there that are doing those ads that are really good with the new AI technology that can put together quick ads and they can take pictures and all that stuff that would love to make a profit that way. So check Google, because there's probably somebody that could do that. Yes, eBay redo, but none in my town. It's possible that there's somebody under a different name. I don't know what the names of those places are, but do a Google search, because that would certainly be worth finding out. Okay, I got to wrap this up here. I respect you guys' time, and I kept you here for a long time. Hoarding only affects the person with the ailment. True or false? This is absolutely a myth. This is absolutely a myth. There are a lot of family members that are dealing with other family members who have hoarding tendencies, or who are full-blown hoarders, or who hoard collections of things, or who are organized hoarders. Talk about the woman that had the arcade in her basement, and in the other basement she had a Blockbuster store, she had a Michael's store over her garage, and all these things, and two homes next door to each other, because one was an overflow house, right? She also had a lot of storage units and two sheds behind each of the houses, one shed behind each of the houses, so two sheds. But the reality is it affects everybody. It affects the kids, it affects the spouses, it affects the other relatives that come to stay. Well, I can't stay because that room that would be a guest room is really a Michael's store, right? It affects everybody. And so to pretend that it's an isolated incident, it's not. And I want, as we start the conversation with yourself or with the people that you love as we move through the new year, I want us to focus on, hey, you're not alone. If there's one message we can share, it's you're not alone. This affects us all, and we're all in this together. And so how can we help? And this is the reason why we're having this course, why we're having these conversations. We want to help. That's really the only reason we're doing this. We want to spread the word, and we want to help. There are a lot of people right now that are struggling with these issues. And the answer is, you're not alone. You're not alone. This is not an isolated incident. This is not 1 out of 50 people. They say it's as high as 1 in 20 people. If that's true, the whole neighborhood just got a little bit more cluttered. And I cannot tell you how many homes we've gone to, and the yards are immaculate. The cars are immaculate. Professional people come out of their house, they get in their car, they look like they've got it put together. And you're like, man, how do we keep up with the Joneses? And then you open up the inside of their house and you're like, whoa, obviously the priority is not in here, right? And then they're overwhelmed because there are other priorities and they don't know how to deal with the stuff. Hoarding happens to everybody. It can happen to anybody, right? It's all different socioeconomic groups. It's not one particular type of people. It's a lot. It happens to everybody. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining me. This is the end of today's conversation. I do want to let you guys get back to your day. I really appreciate the time that we were able to spend together. I don't think I have any questions here that have not been answered. Patty said I inherited my deceased mother's Hummels, around $5. It was her collection, and I don't want to keep them. I'm going to give you permission to find a Hummel collector and probably sell them and let them pay for the shipping and pay for the packing and all that stuff. They'll send somebody over to pack up all of those items. If you're not wanting to ship them, they'll individually wrap them and all that stuff, and they'll buy them. Probably all they need are pictures for that. So that would be something that if it's not in your purview and you don't care about it and it doesn't mean anything to you, there are Hummel collectors that will pay whatever they got to pay for those. So that's one of those things. Yeah. And so there are people that stumble into stuff like that. And then they're like, well, hey, who knew? Maybe I need to, do something so that I can pack this stuff up and get rid of it. And off we go. All right, so that's it for today. We are going to meet here next Thursday, same time, same place. This replay will be available instantly here on the YouTube channel, so you can watch it again and again, or you can just share the link with a friend that you know. I do want to reinforce the fact, as we move through the new year, we may not have all the answers, but we do have some answers, and we're all better together. All right, so that's it. Happy New Year. You guys have a great one. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Take care.